Hi everybody, Paymon. This is part 5 of the 6-part series on a beginner's guide to creating shareable infographics. So, as you know, in the last few episodes I talked about the brainstorming process before you create your infographic, the types of infographics, and also how to actually design it. So today we're going to be talking about one of the important factors, important key elements in infographics, and that is how to create persuasive charts and graphs. Now, when it comes to charts, I mean, it kind of deserves its own series, its own book, and there's a lot of information to go over, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to promise you I'm going to break it down into easy, short, snackable video today that in about 10-15 minutes you'll get a good grasp and understanding of how to include and integrate charts into your infographics and perhaps to your presentations, reports, and so on. So I'm going to show you how to tell stories through data today. Here's the thing. This is you. And that actually used to be me as well, because most communicators are pretty much scared of numbers. Now, that is, there's a huge amount of volume. There's a lot of volume of data that we have to deal with. You sometimes have to have large Excel sheets with a lot of tabs, and how do you actually correlate that and make it understandable and actually tell stories through it? And often people are, they run away from it, but there really is a way around it. And in today's era, you really can't run away from it because you need to embrace data and use it to tell stories. In fact, you think about journalists today. There isn't a day goes by that I look at CNN, Fox, and other articles that are present on those sites. And as I scroll down, there's always different volumes of data that are actually visualized into charts and graphs. So it is a part of visual communication. You really got to embrace it, and not run away from it. So let's talk about the different steps. There's 4 steps I'm going to talk about today. Number 1, before you start the actual, before you select the type of chart, before you actually start inputting your data into a chart, you got to understand what you want to do. So step 1, you got to resist the urge to immediately choose a chart. Very similar to how when you want to create a presentation or an infographic, you first have to brainstorm and get things together and then dive into the actual creation process. All right. So let's talk about the next thing. Now, in terms of, this is a kind of a cross-section, is 4 quadrants, and it's about the 4 types of charts that you can create. And there's many different types of charts, but they actually fall into any of these 4. And the question you want to ask yourself first is that, is the information data-driven or is it conceptual? And also, is it declarative or is it explanatory? Because with that, you create this cross line, and there's a quadrant, and depending on where on that quadrant you fall into, and I'll show you in a little bit, you're going to decide the type of chart that you're going to use. So, for example, if you're explaining a concept, you're going to be in the lower left quadrant, and so on. So that's how you do that. Now, this cheat sheet is very valuable, and it is going to be included at the bottom of this video and this page, and also in the ebook. There's a link down below that you can download it and then put it into good use, because every time you want to create a chart, I highly recommend that you tap into that first. Okay. Now, step 2, you got to consult for context before you start. What does that mean? Well, you see, it's an often overlooked step in the creation of chart and graphs. And what you need to do first is take the little time, perhaps just a few minutes, and then think about the actual context of the visualization you're going to create. So when we're talking about context, we're talking about the circumstances that form the setting of your data. Now, this brings me to a few questions you always have to ask yourself. It's actually very similar to a presentation series that I did, where before you put together your presentation, you go through this process of asking yourself a few questions. First, you got to know who your audience is. So who is your audience? Because based on the type of audience that you're going to be presenting to, it helps you to approach in a manner that resonates with them. Now, second is, what do you want to do? What do you want your audience to know? Depending on what you want them to know and what you want to inform them, allows you to start a certain type of discussion or a topic. So that's second. And number 3 is you have to establish the actual setting that will be used in. Is this for an event or a conference? Is this chart going to be a front-facing, let's say for sales or marketing purposes, or is it for internal within your organization? Or perhaps is it going to be shared on social media or on your website? Depending on either one of these, the way that you put the chart together or the volume of data you're going to present, it actually reflects on the setting that it will be used in. So you want to take that into consideration as well. And so the responses to those questions will actually lead us to this last question, and that is, how can you use your data to make this point? Okay. Now, step 3, you have volumes of data, and again, you may have an Excel sheet with hundreds of columns or rows of data, many tabs. Your audience doesn't really care about that. What matters at the end is how you summarize and how you allow them to understand that. So what you got to do is you got to focus and define the focus and ask yourself, how can I summarize this data? How can I make it snackable and easy to understand? So this leads us to step 3, and that is to define the focus of the graphic and the story that you want to tell. So you got to state your unique point of view. Now, your audience actually often respects, or is interested at least, in the opinion that you have to present. What you want to do is also back it up with facts when possible. And of course, in that case, you often want to back it up with data, since we're talking about charts and graphs. Additionally, you want to define what's at stake. And then also what you want to do is it must be a complete sentence. When I talk about a complete sentence, the actual chart that you're going to be creating, or the graph, you want to have a headline. And on top of that headline, you almost want to ask a question or state in a sentence. So let's look at a couple of examples. I'm going to show you a few before and after. So the key to effective communication, you got to hone in on your main message. Okay? So make your key points stand out. And also, when do people buy on your website? This is the title of this graph here. So it asks a question, it's a full sentence. When do people buy on our website? And if you look below, there's a lot of different elements to this. There's women's and men's. I don't know, is that women's shoes? Is it men's pants? Is it, it doesn't define that. So there is problem number 1 there. Number 2, there's a large legend here, and above it, there's actually a number of different rows or segmentations of the data in different colors. So it's not terrible, but the fact of the matter is that, just stare at this for about 15 seconds or so. Do you fully understand it? Now let's simplify this a little bit. Let's look at another example. It's the same information, but it has been simplified. So same title, but in this case, what we're doing is we're grouping those segmentations into just 4 quadrants. And you can clearly see that the blue area, which is about 12 to 6 p.m., and between 12 to 6 p.m., the women's and men's apparel are most often bought on this website. And what we've done is we've actually eliminated the legend, and we've actually brought that into the chart itself. So this allows you to more easily, in a snackable manner, understand this graph. So if you look at it again, this is easier to understand, of course, than the last example. Same data, same information, but you're focusing on the main elements. Step 4 is use physical markers, pencils and paper to storyboard your idea. Now I'm going to show you this next cheat sheet, and it's going to look a little complicated. Don't worry about it. It's actually pretty easy to understand once you dive in. Now what you want to do is matching some of the keywords that I listed in the last example earlier in that 4 quadrants, and you want to summarize it into this next visual. So let's take a look at it. Now, again, don't be afraid. There's a lot going on here, but in the center is where you're going to look for the center and actually work your way. And by following this guideline, this workflow, it allows you to determine the type of chart that you can use. Okay, so let's hone in on a little bit deeper. Now, if you look on this one, we have comparison. Let's just say that you have a composition chart. What do you want to create? Let's say it's a composition, and then it's going to be static data. And then if you come down a little bit further, it's going to be shares or pieces of a whole. So in this case, it could be a pie chart. So this is a great example that allows you to, by having this cheat sheet, I highly recommend you download it. And every time you want to create a chart, you actually go in and follow this guideline. Again, you can download as a PDF. There's a link provided below, and you'll be able to use that in every single visual or report or chart you're going to create. Step 5. Refine your chart by decluttering. Again, simplify it. Simple versus complex. It involves arranging elements, and you want to direct your readers to perceive them in a certain order. Let's go through a few examples. But before that, I want to show you how you actually segment your data. So your visualization should be well structured. Imagine this slide here. Imagine this is the real estate for an actual graph. Okay? Title, subtitle, content, and there's the footer. In fact, it's very similar to the last episode that I did on how to design your infographic, where we talk about there's a header area, there's a body, and there's a footer to your infographic. very similar. But what you want to do is you only want to have about 20%, so about 12% or so for your title and subtitle, about 8%. Again, let's just say about 1/5 of the total real estate of the top area for the chart header and subheader. And then further down would be the main, or the meat of it is going to be the chart itself, and then at the bottom is going to be the footer, and that's where you're going to have the sources of the data that you're presenting. Now, let's talk about most important items of the chart. In other words, when you're presenting something, you want to allow the user's eye to go towards the focal points. So this is a chart about non-mortgage debt outstanding. And if you look at it, this is like a personal, debt in different individuals. And when you look at this, there's 4 different lines, well, actually 5, and in different colors, and you really don't know which one to look at. But perhaps in this case, what you want to do is you want to concentrate on the student debt. So if you look at this next example, what's happened is everything else has been moved into the back, meaning by graying out the legend, graying out the other lines, and the only one is the blue one that's actually sticking out. That's the student loans. And you can clearly see that that is easier to understand, so you focus on that. What we've done is actually push all the chart elements to the background. We applied a gray color. And then we've used different design techniques to make the item, in this case using color, to stand out. And let's look at this one. So you want to use only 2 to 3 colors to highlight important points. This chart here, using complementary colors. There was another episode that I covered about how to use complementary colors. And in this case, you can clearly see that it's easy on the eye, and also we're highlighting the key points there. Additionally, you want to use only 2 or 3 colors to highlight important points. Very similar to the last one, and this is just a different type of chart. And also, what you want to do is you want to do away with chart grid lines and borders as much as possible. It's okay to have them, but when you can, try to eliminate. Because again, it's about simplicity. It's about allowing your user and their eye to concentrate on something. So, as an example, this is the slow Comcast speed costing Netflix customers. This was a whole story going on over a number of years. There was a lot about it in the news, and basically there was this battle between Comcast and Netflix. And what happened was, came February 2014, Netflix actually ended up paying Comcast to directly connect to its network. And so as a result, what happened was it caused the number of calls to Netflix for slow network complaints actually dropped. So what's happened is we've eliminated the legends, the grid lines, and we're just concentrating on this vertical line showing the February 2014. So that's what that is showing you. Also, the other one is to eliminate legends when possible. Legends are okay, but if you can, eliminate them. Because what you're doing is you're allowing the user to focus on one element versus going back and forth between them. And so here's an example of that's been cleaned up. It's actually gone from a pie chart to an actual bar chart format. And if you look at it, you have taken the legend out, and we have the percentages clearly shown over the colored areas. And so what you're doing is you're limiting the eye movement from one end of the chart to the other. And so what you've done is also label the segments, the lines, or the bars directly. So those are a few examples that gives you an idea as far as how to create charts and graphs. Now, I'm talking about in an infographic series here, but really at the end of the day, the same principles that I provided to you, you can follow it through for individual charts, whether you want to embed it to a report, infographic, or presentation. Thank you.